In a world where everybody's trying to be somebody, what would it look like to just be nobody, and to empty the vessel and empty the body and the mind of all of the stories of what am I going to do and how am I going to do it and how am I going to make the money and who's going to come into my field and this, so much noise. But what would it look like to spend 2.5 hours every single day to clear that noise out through specific mantras and mudras and meditations, and a way to be able to become truly a vessel for something greater to move through? Hello, you beautiful bluebirds, and welcome back to another episode of Deja Blu. It is your girl Blue here, and today is going to be a shorter solo podcast. I like to sprinkle in the solo podcast every now and then into the Deja Blu experience, and the solo podcasts are really just an opportunity for me to share a little bit what's going on, because when I have my guests, it's really, I'm in host mode and I'm asking questions and I'm really listening to their nuggets of wisdom and their expertise and what they have to share. And in between those, I like to sprinkle these individual podcasts to just really bring you on the journey of life with me as I continue to experiment and dive into the depth of consciousness and expand my own comfort zone so I can pull up the gold on the other side, and from that place share it with others through this podcast. So thanks for being here again. And I've had a pretty amazing past 48 hours-ish. Today is officially day number 39 of 40 days of devotion. Never in my life, and Brianna pointed this out yesterday when I saw her, never in my life have I spiritually stuck to something for 40 days or longer outside of the cleanse that I'm on. This is a big deal. And I'm realizing that devotion in one area ripples into devotion in all areas of my life. And it's an invitation to up-level exponentially, while simultaneously what I have been doing is, when I break it down, 2.5 hours of meditation a day times that by 40 equals Chelsea. 2.5 times 40.
I think it's 100.
You think? 100? 100 hours of meditation. Give or take. So for all you mathematics out there that have done the calculation and you realize it's not 100, disclaimer, we are not claiming that it's 100, but we think it's somewhere around 100. Thank you, Chelsea. Between Chelsea and I, we share 3 brain cells when it comes to maths. No, okay. All right. We'll just stick to creating beautiful art. So anyways, about 100 hours of meditation over the past 40 days or 39 days, 40 total, as of tomorrow. And Brianna came up with this amazing idea. She was like, wow, this is the big deal. Like, this is a rebirth of your path of devotion, of you being devoted to something greater than yourself in a very consistent way. And let's celebrate. Like, it's a rebirth day for you. Like, we're going to celebrate that you made it to the end of the 40 days devotion. And I was like, yeah, amazing. And I was like, why don't, we wake up before the sun rises, meet at 5 a.m. at the Mother Tree and hike up to Inspiration Point, but we've got to be wearing what our higher selves would wear. So like tribal markers and paints and like crazy outfits. We're going to go up to the top of the mountain and we're going to watch the sunrise together and celebrate the 40th day of devotion. Do you want to come tomorrow morning? 5 a.m. Okay. This is like what I love so much about community and tribe. It's just like the permission slip of the celebration of each other ultimately. Like, we're celebrating each other's small wins, celebrating each other's big wins. This is a big win for me. I feel like I have been known as the queen of distraction, and I still definitely work with it. However, to be in meditation for 2.5 hours a day and just to go inwards and to really actually become an explorer of the inner realms, this is actually truly where I think the magic is born from. Because and Sadhguru talks about this, like, we, in a world where everybody's trying to be somebody, what would it look like to just be nobody, and to empty the vessel and empty the body and the mind of all of the stories of what am I going to do and how am I going to do it and how am I going to make the money and who's going to come into my field and this, so much noise. But what would it look like to spend 2.5 hours every single day to clear that noise out through specific mantras and mudras and meditations and a way to be able to become truly a vessel for something greater to move through. Now, it was not easy the whole time. And in fact, actually just up to a couple of days ago, like I was like, oh, I don't want to do my practice. It was like 10 p.m. I was exhausted. I'd been up before the sun doing my practice in the morning, and I still had my night practice to do, and Andre had gone to sleep, and all the lights were off in the house. And I'm so deep into the practice now at this point. If I just skip over it, I would shoot myself in the foot. It would just waste like the 30 days that I had already put in just because I couldn't be bothered. And so it was just like moving through that resistance. At the end of the practice, I always feel so grateful that I did the practice. However, it's just moving through the resistance that comes up. And there'll be times when my mind just wanted to skip over it. And I'm like, instead of like, which is like a usual right? It's like pretty drawn out. I'm like, And I'm like, wait, hold on. What am I doing? Am I just doing this for doing it? Or am I actually doing this to receive value out of it? And so it was just so applicable to so many different areas of my life of where was I skipping over, like trying to cut corners so that I can get to some place that then was just never, it was like this never ending hunger to get somewhere that I wasn't. And it brought up many different things. It brought up my relationship with time and how I really don't like being late for anything. And if I'm late for something, I get like anxiety about it. And anxiety doesn't really ripple into too many areas of my life, but definitely my relationship with time. And I was noticing in my practice how I was trying to skip over my individual modules of the practice to finish or to get somewhere. And it was just kept bringing it back. And something that I studied in the 33rd Gene Key of Mindfulness was that it's not going to get easier. It's actually probably going to get harder the more conscious of yourself you become. And it's just because so I can start tracking everything in my field, where my thoughts are going, what am I sending my attention on, where am I aimlessly tuning out, and what's enriching and depleting my spirit. I'm hyper aware of all of these different areas. And even if I'm feeding into something that depletes my spirit, there's my higher self that's going, come on, what are you doing? Come on. Hello. And I'm present to it, and I kind of fight with myself. So to be able to get to day 40 tomorrow and to say that I committed to every single practice, and by the time that I got to halfway through the practice, I had eventually moved through the mountain blocks of my mind and my monkey mind experience. And there's this like funny video that was like on Instagram that was viraling the internet. And it really makes me laugh. It's this guy meditating, and he's like sitting in the lotus position, and there's just like this bubble above his head, and it's just all these random videos that he's watched all day, like viral videos flashing. And he's like, when I'm trying to meditate, and all of the shit that I watched online just flashing in my mind. And like, that's super accurate. Like the random video that just absorbed into my consciousness, and just realizing like how influential we are. And once we expose our consciousness to something, we can't unexpose it. It's there now. So the discernment of what I'm exposing my consciousness to specifically before my meditations, and my refinement and my responsibility when it comes to my action, my thoughts, my words, my deeds. And something that I did recently that is such a game changer, and I would highly recommend if anybody that's got an altar or that has a practice, is for me personally is I went and printed out pictures of all of the people that are the closest to me in my life that have either been a teacher or a guide, my family members. So I printed a picture of my mother, my father, my brother when he was a baby, and my brother when now as an adult. I printed a picture of myself as a baby and like little Charlotte. And I printed out pictures of obviously Andre and then my closest friends. And I put these pictures, and Princess Diana, of course, because Princess Diana, and Nika. And if you know anything about me and you've been following me for a while, you know exactly who Nika is. If you don't know who Nika is, in a very tight nutshell, it was my 98-year-old best friend, Holocaust survivor, who just so happened to be my ex-partner's grandmother. She's a legend, and she's one of my angels. So she was on the altar. And now when I'm at my practice, like since I've got these beings in my life, or since I've got them on my altar, And I found the most beautiful picture of them, like the way they look super radiant and super happy. And when I look into the eyes of the people in the pictures, I'm reminded of the abundance that I have in my life based off of truly what matters in the world, which is the impact that we make on others and how we treat and build relationships with those around us, how we support them, how we are supported by them, and how we really make people feel ultimately is what truly matters. Like, that number in your bank account ain't going with you when you pass away, okay? That beautiful fancy car you got or that spanking Rolex, that ain't gonna go with you. But the impact that you made in the lives of the hearts of those that are still left on the planet after you pass will last and be passed on the stories to their children and their children's children. And so this is something that's really, really important to me, and being able to sit with their photos. And after my practice, when I've raised my frequency over a series of intricate practices, I look at those images from a heightened state, and I just send blessings to every single person every morning, every night since those pictures have been up. And there's been moments where I've like healed parts of my relationship with my family members, and just through looking at their images and bringing in the Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian prayer of "I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you," and saying it over and over, and then singing it and pulling cards and placing them on the altar and making offerings and bringing fresh flowers. And it's like my portal to another realm is my altar now. And now it's got to the point where I'm starting on my day from a place of, like, this morning, for example, I didn't really get that much sleep, but I woke up this morning and I felt like I just sat in front of my altar and I was just like smiling the whole way through my practice. Just like, there was moments where I used to do this a lot as a kid, and I still do this when I'm manifesting things. Intentionally manifesting. We're always manifesting stuff, but intentionally manifesting. I tap into my inner child, and I could pretty much, if you're watching the video on YouTube, then you'll be able to see this clearer. If you're just listening to it, you can just probably hear it in my voice, but it's like, I go, and I just genuinely get so excited about a certain thing or many things that I blast that level of excitement and love into every single cell in my body. And there's a song that I was tagged in on Instagram way back when, and it just resonates with activating the 73 trillion cells that exist in our body, the little citizens that are listening to our God, which is our nucleus, our brain, our thoughts. And blast them with like a little, every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Now, it sounds really cheesy, but when I'm in a really like heightened state of joy, I just recognize that that's just a large amount of energy that can be focused on manifesting. And so there is a specific part in my practice where I like pull the energy up. Essentially I don't know, it's like the part in between my butt and my yoni, the Kegel. I like pull, is that called the Moya Bunda or something? Don't quote me on that one. Pull the energy up. Well, I'm doing like a series, there's like a section in the Shunya Sadhguru practice that is like animals. So the first part is a dog breath. And then the second part is bird called. Like, yeah, really, I go for it. And then the third part is snake breath, which essentially, I don't know if you know this fun fact, snakes inhale for 9 seconds of 8 increments, and then they exhale one big exhale through the left nostril. Fun fact of the day. So I do that as well. And during the animal part, there's like a hold where you pull it and hold the energy in. And that's where I then navigate and direct the energy into my day, or like just my pure gratitude for being alive and for having the things that I do have. And I think that it's so easy on the spiritual path and on the self-development path and the self-empowerment path is to want to constantly like be evolved or like evolving into something else or doing something else or learning something else or taking a new course or whatever it is to continue to find the edge. And I think there's so much beauty in that growth. And I'm definitely someone that does that. It's also easy to override what we just have, like what is here, what is already been accomplished and created. And in those moments, it's just a pure gratitude for what is, not trying to be anything, not trying to be anywhere. Just thank you for the roof over my head and for the love in my life and for the people that I love. And I open my eyes and I look at the pictures and I feel they're surrounding me. And it's just an amazing opportunity to just be in the frequency of gratitude, because I really feel like gratitude is the frequency of abundance, and just being in that state of gratitude just allows more gifts to be presented because it's a matching frequency. And ultimately, you know, the secret sauce here when having a conversation with the universe is the feeling. And if I'm sitting in front of the altar and I'm going, like there's no feeling there. So I may as well not be doing it. And this is the shadow frequency and the gene keys of half-heartedness, which is like, I'm doing something, but I don't not want to be here, which you may as well not do it at all. It's a waste of energy. It leaks the energy out of your, like, it's sort of like the leaking wagon. And it's the domestication of dreams, doing anything half-heartedly. So, recognizing and just bringing my awareness back into that. And I'm realizing that half-heartedness trickles into those things that I don't really want to do, which is like, hey, fill out this tax form or have a meeting with your accountant and talk about numbers. And there's just certain things that I just like are not my, like, I jump out of bed going, yay, I get to make an Excel spreadsheet today. This is so exciting. That's not me. However, Andre said to me, and I've mentioned this multiple times in the podcast, if you can do what you love with 100%, can you do what you don't love with 200%? So in my practice, when my mind is wandering, to bring myself back into the devotion and to start really being reconnected with the feeling, then that does apply to how I weave my reality from the mundane moments. And Brianna and I recently did a podcast, The Miracles in the Mundane. It's like, can we find those miracles in the mundane? Because then ultimately we can't lose. But this is an inside job. Abundance is an inside job. Love is an inside job. The way that we flow through life is an inside job. And when we're filled with noise and we're filled with stories and we're filled with narratives that are just blocking ourselves, so basically got a mason, like if you have a mason jar and it's just full of water, there's just no room for anything else to come in. Ultimately, if the glass is filled with our thoughts and our worries and our concerns and our mental chatter, then how can the universe work with us, through us, for us to evolve as an individual and therefore subsequently a collective? So stillness and quietness is super important. And this isn't just, based off of one single religion, but it's really just neuroscience of how the brain works and how to optimize our human capacity is coming from a place of stillness. And there's a lot of strength actually, and there's a lot of power, internal, sustainable power in stillness. And in a world where we are just bombarded with distractions and overstimulus, I can't drive down West Sunset without Sunset Boulevard with like 100 different billboards, like almost crashing every 2 seconds. It's like, oh, look at this new movie that's out. And oh, look at that. And they're going to change my music. And then my phone's going off. And I'm still driving. I'm like doing like 6 things at once. The mind just gets super loud and super busy. And so Sadhguru suggest 40 days because 40 days is when the new neural pathways are really being formed and created. And I knew that going into the 40 days of devotion did not mean that I was going to end on day 40 and just go back to my merry old ways. It's like actually realizing that my old ways weren't that merry. Like, I was a leaking bandwagon or just wagon. I was a leaking wagon with a rusty wheel. And simultaneously, I was a wagon nonetheless, and I was still like doing beautiful things. So it's just the journey of the upward spiral of refinement while simultaneously not shaming, guilting, blaming, or distorting what has happened in the past, as it's all aligned and set up perfectly to be who I am in this moment and to be sharing these insights with you right now here on Deja Blu podcast. This is really just sort of where I'm at currently. I go through days where I'm like super stoked on life, and there's days where I'm like a little bit like meh. And ultimately, if I can just learn to surrender to what is, then I eliminate my suffering. It's the resistance to what is, and what emotions will present themselves is ultimately where the suffering for me is born. So it's just learning to listen in a much deeper way in all planes of existence. And something else that I have decided to do with my 40 days of devotion, seeing as the 40 days of devotion doesn't just apply to my practice, but it applies to my health and my diet and my lover and my home. And so one other thing that I got, which I did the solo podcast on, was booking the chiropractor and the gynecologist, and going to the doctors and getting my blood test and everything. Went to the dentist, and I had just put this off for years. And I realized actually, like, through the negligence of me not taking care of this stuff, I have cavities, and my spine, I have a mild form of scoliosis, and I have candida in my gut. Like, these are things that are a byproduct of just disconnecting from my body completely and not having a deep relationship to my body and my listening. And ultimately, here I am, in my 30s with a hereditary hearing disorder because I'm not listening. So funny how everything is just so connected. And simultaneously, I believe that we can heal ourselves from anything, and it's found in a deep sense of stillness and listening, and from that place, and surrender ultimately. And from that place, we become the pioneer of everything that's ever happened to us in the past, and how we can start utilizing it to be of service for the future. So it just feels like I'm really finally becoming the mother for myself, so that one day I may be blessed with a child that I could truly be in devotion to that child and make sure they're taken care of, and make sure that they never go a day without feeling loved, and that they have safe spaces for them to remember their magic, to keep their magic alive ultimately, and to play as much as possible. And for me to ultimately be a student of this child in a way where I'm also not passing on any integrated emotional wounds that have been passing on through generations, through my family lineage, but to truly give the best start for this child's life as possible. Because ultimately, when we have a whole generation of awakened mothers, they give birth to very hard to control children. And what I mean by control is sort of like the manipulation of our consciousness in a way that sits an agenda that basically doesn't want us to speak out. But to actually have children that are so tapped into their intuition and so tapped into their creativity and the laws of this planet and the magic and manifestation and prayer and meditation and the true art of play, and it stays alive, that we would have a whole new world in the next couple of generations. So yeah, micro, macro. However, I just feel like every day there's something different when I go on Instagram. Every day there's some other, there's right now it's everything that's happening in Cuba and their government and the corruption and their people and how they're starting to protest, but then their social media and all the internet has been shut down so that they can't reach the outside world. And it's just this so every day, and I'm asking every day in front of my altar, like, what can I do? How can I serve? And ultimately, the piece that I'm getting right now is just dial yourself in. Be someone on the planet that is actually taking a responsibility for their own internal reality, and then create content, and then share a message, and then love every single person that comes into your field, from the waitress at the restaurant to the next person that might do a business deal with you. Like, treat them the same. Like, everybody is your own karma wrapped in physical form, and just how you continue to interact and weave with the people that come into your life is exactly how you are relating to yourself and what you're emanating out into the world. And it's your vibratory contribution to the collective consciousness. And I feel like when one person truly awakens, it is not just talking the talk and posting on Instagram, but is walking the walk and being the embodiment of it, that will just ripple into the hearts and the minds of anybody in their immediate reality and beyond. So I'm listening, I'm learning. I have a long way to go when it comes to the refinement of taking control back over my mind, and simultaneously done a lot of work to get to this point of clarity and this ability to accumulate my words into a specific way where I can speak from my heart and speak from a place of authenticity. And ultimately my reason behind both the podcast and everything that I'm sharing moving forward is not to place me on a pedestal, but just know that if you have your breath and you have a heartbeat, which means aka you're alive, then you have these tools to support you to find this peace within you. But it lies within everybody, but not everybody's going to be willing to face off with the resistance and the discomfort to get to that point. So it's not easy. It's worth it. Worth it at 10 million thousand times over. And as of tomorrow, I am complete with my 40 days of devotion, but I am not complete with my devotion in life. So I may not be time-lapsing it every morning, but I will definitely be every morning sitting in front of my altar and praying with my guides and my angels and my ascended masters and myself and all of my friends and my family and to all of you and to the world and to all of her creatures and all sentient life on this planet, to the earth and to all of our ancestors, just in gratitude, in prayer, and in deep listening. So if you haven't already started a 40 Days of Devotion Challenge, I highly recommend it. It's not too late to jump on. It costs no money whatsoever. You don't need to be any specific religion, race, age, or gender, or financial demographic. You can just join if you have your breath and heartbeat. Feel free to build an altar, light a candle, spend at least 40 minutes in your practice, and this can be accumulated with many different tools or technologies that you like to utilize, which brings you into a deeper state of mindfulness. Alternate nostril breathing, maybe some meditation, maybe a guided meditation, some yoga, some singing, freestyle journaling, writing a song, dancing, whatever feels like your highest excitement, pulling cards, being in prayer and saying a prayer out to the universe. You get to custom it the way that you want to, and then commit to 40 days. And it's not just commitment, it's devotion. Right? So there's the half-heartedness gene key, then there's the gift of commitment, and then there's the city of devotion. Now, this is just like, you are the earth, basically. You become the earth because you've learned to empty yourself enough to be able to be in co-creation with something greater than yourselves and be guided into the right directions that support the evolution of your individual self and therefore the collective consciousness. So thank you so much for tuning in today. There's a couple of announcements just at the end, or maybe just one, I guess. Well, first and foremost, Andre's sister, ALANA DUQUM, has released a song and it's called United, and you should definitely check it out. We will put the link in the show notes. She is such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful saint of a heart and cares so deeply for the planet and cares so deeply for about the creatures of this planet. And she has geared her life around creating music that heals and unites. And she just created a song, which is, I think, my favorite song of all of her songs so far, called United. And the lyrics are beautiful. And so she's ALANA DUQUM, DUQUM, if you go find her on Instagram and give her some love on her posts, and go check out her song on Spotify. Go give it some love, and share that. And if you have resonated with today's podcast and you want to share it, then my invitation for you is to share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me, tag Deja Blu podcast, and we can reach many more people through you sharing this podcast as well. So with that being said, with so much gratitude and so much appreciation, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Deja Blu. And I will see you so soon.